So where are we going? And this is where our industry opportunities are. Federation is critical. When it was just one ICAM, didn't have to federate, But the reality is we do have to federate. We have to federate with the state, tribal, local, coalition. Now with the creation of the additional internal ICAMs within the DoD, we have to federate with them as well. So federation, there's numerous working groups that are ongoing today to define federation within the DoD. That's good and bad, right? DoD likes to go their own direction and define things already defined by industry. So this is where we're looking at industry, help us be relevant instead of creating a very unique DoD version of federation that industry's already determined the way forward, how to do it. Come to us, share your knowledge, so that way we're not reinventing the wheel. Reports and audits. We have a requirement as the DoD to provide the financial management audits. It's not only the financial management, there's other communities that have segregation of duties. Right now we're just focused on the FMs. So as we have standards, if you have knowledge in the space of the reporting, E&Ys or whatever, what we're trying to do is this is new. Right now they're auditing 2875. Well, that's going to go away. It's going to be ICAM. For the entire DoD, it's going to be an ICAM. So we can automate some of these checks of, is there a report? So what does the auditors want to see? What is the standards? And the nice thing is by us consolidating as an ICAM across the DoD, we can standardize those reports so that way every auditor sees the same thing the same way. And it's going to make things a lot easier, A, for the auditors and for the people being audited. Data standards and tagging. As a previous briefing, for those of you who were there for that, data tags, it's super important. If we don't have consistency on our data tagging, it's going to be very hard as we move into the zero trust and flattening the networks to make sure that the access to that data is consistent, right? Is a tank a physical tank that the Army uses? Is a tank something that flies in the air that fuels other airplanes, or is a water tank for the Navy? So these standards of data and tagging is going to be very important as we move forward. Once again, there is a lot of DoDism, so we have our unique things that maybe industry doesn't touch with, but we have a lot of commonality. And as we look to expand into the state, the tribals, the locals, and just industry as a whole, help us with those standards. What do you already have defined so we're not reinventing the wheel? Privilege access management, that's for the administrative side of the house. We have a MVP that we're evaluating right now for our internal use, but there's a requirement to be zero trust to have an enterprise PAM. So that's coming down. If you've had expertise in the PAM area, come to the table, give us your insight. Once again, for privilege access management, we have challenges. We have DISA, and then we have a different accrediting officer for the Army, and we have a different accrediting officer for the Navy. So sometimes, while we're all one service, the DoD, we tend to have our little pillars or our fiefdoms as well. So there's nuances with having privilege access management and giving up the keys to the kingdom. So be interesting to learn from industry on how you can help with that. Attribute-based access control. We are currently evaluating the NSA or the IC ABAC solution that they productized for us. They were given funding to give it to us. We just received it. We're doing an analysis. We would also like to know what industry is doing, because once again, GOTS and the DoD building our own solutions might work for our very niche, but as we open up to do ABAC across not only the DoD, but the federal space as well, making sure that we have a consistent product that is an industry standard, vice, once again, a DoDism. Non-phishable multi-factor authentication, that's important. When Tim Hess accesses my email, I use my CAC. But when I access my Azure environment for managing my administration for ICAM, should I still be using my CAC? No. I should be using MFA for making sure that there's additional fidelity that Tim has not been spoofed or my CAC's been stolen or I'm being held hostage somewhere. So that's another important factor, specifically the non-phishable piece. There's a lot of solutions out there. There's YubiKeys, other technologies that are available. Right now, NSA is doing an evaluation, MFA strategy. So once that's formalized, we're going to be reaching out to the vendors to figure out, okay, what is our way forward for the DoD? Next slide. Over to Major Hall.
Thank you very much. All right, so if we can turn back on the mic. Okay, thank you very much. All right, so if you look to the far left, my far right here, you'll see the operational capabilities. This is what's currently available and operable, both in NIPR, which we are on IL4 and deployed in the cloud environment, and SIPR, which we're deployed in Impact Level 6, or IL6, right? And so these are all the things that we have currently available, which is the core infrastructure for ICAM. So we have the IDP, AAP, as you guys learned, identity provider, and the automatic account provisioning. There's two kind of service offerings. You can decide to just onboard to the IDP for authentication, or you can just onboard to the AAP for the automatic account provisioning, right? Or both. This is what an application would submit and, kind of onboarding requests and so on and so forth. So these are the things that we have available within our space here. As you move over to the right, or move to the left, should I say, these are our FY24 capabilities that we currently have planned. This is what we plan to deliver in this fiscal year. So the first thing is the federal PIV. So that right now we have DoD CAC that is able to authenticate. We want to expand that to applications that have other users, and that will be federal PIV as well as the ECA certificate or external certificate authority for commercial sector, right? So that is what we're extending this. So now those applications that have those particular users on those applications can now onboard and utilize the IDP. Again, I know that we had some new faces in here, but I will reiterate that there is a DoD policy and a requirement as we move to Zero Trust so that every DoD application onboards to an IDP by 2025 and an AAP by 2027. So therefore, it's important that we continue to expand the customer base that can leverage the capability. So that is a huge thing, is that we're able to deliver the Fed PIV authentications, and we're also able to deliver those ECA certs for those applications. Another good thing that we're delivering, come back. Nope. There we go. All right. Another thing that we're doing is for our identity provider. There's a huge push for the Internet Protocol version 6 for everybody to kind of be ready across the Department of Defense. And so what we're doing for ICAM this year is making sure that not only are we compliant, but as well we are ready. So if there are any potential future customers within the future, we're ready, and we're ready to accept those customers. Now, one thing we cannot do is make sure that the transport is upgraded, but we're going to be ready, and we're going to be ready whenever the Department of Defense decides to move in that direction. Another huge delivery is that we have the automatic account provisioning being delivered on SIPR this year. So we did our IDP last year on the SIPR, and this year we're moving the automatic account provisioning. We're building that out, and we'll have that delivered. So essentially, by the end of this fiscal year, we'll have the full core infrastructure and capability both on the NIPR as well as the SIPR side, which is a huge thing for our customer base and for those SIPR users. Moving over to future capabilities, and this is one of the biggest things, is what industry can help us out with. These are things that we're still figuring out. These are things that we plan to deliver and that we need to deliver for ICAM, right? So one of the things that obviously has hits on is Federation, but specifically we call it the Federation Hub, right? yes, the Federation Hub is going to help us with state, local, tribal, coalition, but it will also help us with the Department of Defense, other ICAMs, because we have disparate ICAMs and we have to be able to be a zero trust network across the board. So that hub will work for the DoD mission partners as well as the external state coalitions and so forth. We need someone to help us out within that space, understanding of what access and controls and things of that nature, authorization and authentication. So we need someone to help us out and figuring that out. I think that one is a huge one. Some of the other things, API gateway, increases security, reduce, vector attacks, all those great things. But some of the other ones that are a little looser for us would be like LBAC, PBAC, RADMAC, right? We know kind of holistically what that means, but it would be really great if industry, if you had some lessons learned or you had the technology or you had some things that you really give us a little bit more fidelity in helping us in planning, those would be really great points to jump in and interject and help us out with there. And the last thing is a great point that Hess made yesterday is that whatever we're doing on NIPR, we're doing on SIPR. We're just delivering it probably a year or two later. But the priority is obviously NIPR because that's where we have majority of our applications, majority of the Department of Defense, and then moving thus forward. So that is our operational capabilities now, what we are delivering this year, and then what we need industry partners to help us out with in the future. Next slide, please. So this is how to engage to onboard ICAM. So we have, as a disparate program office, as Tim mentioned earlier, we came together, brought all these products, and in one central location that you can go on to our self-service portal in order to log in and submit a onboarding request. So one thing to note is we have our hub page down at the very bottom there. If you want to know anything about our program office, when we plan to deliver something, if you have something very specific that you're like, I wonder when they're going to deliver this one particular thing, we have a roadmap out there. You see exactly when we plan to deliver everything. Another thing is that we have user videos. If you don't know how to submit an onboarding request, guess what? There's a video showing you how to do it. There's a video out there for pretty much anything. Another thing that we do 2 technical exchange meetings a month. So whatever works for you, whether mornings or evenings work for you, we have 2 TIMs that are posted there, and we have our countdown clock, and you can just click on the link and join our monthly TIMs. Another thing is that if you don't have the time to join one that we have scheduled, there's already recordings. You can click on those and view exactly what we have. I think the TIMs are a great place for the technical exchange. If you have specific questions, a lot of people have specific things that are unique to them and they want to have those conversations, so that would be a great opportunity. Another thing is that if you want to reach out to us, that is our group email that is on the slide here, so you can reach out and email us, but we will push you over to the customer engagement team, especially if you have already submitted an onboarding request. We usually don't do one-on-ones. That's the reason why we have the TIMs. The one-on-ones are after you have already submitted your onboarding request with us. So that is everything there. If you have any questions, like I said, somebody is walking around, please raise your hand, because we would love to hear from you all or offer any clarification if we were not clear in our briefing here. We were clear as mud. We're perfect. Great. I'm just kidding. Oh.
So how does industry engage when you were looking forward with your 2025 plans? And I pretty much believe those are all internal emails, right? Or internal websites?
Those internal websites, but that email, you can email us at the DISA -ICAM PMO. So that email goes out to the Program Management Office, the DISA Program Management Office, and ICAM personnel. So that would be a great way to send that industry to reach out to us via that email, and we can link up.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Mm-hmm. Usually we start with our technical staff on any initial engagement so that we can make sure that it is technically sound before. Yeah. No one can hear after this brief. Any other questions?
As she's moving across the room right now, one question that came up yesterday that I feel needs to be repeated today is the question on, right now what you've seen here is user identities. There was a question yesterday about non-person entities. And while that is on the roadmap for ICAM, there's nuances around the funding profiles and capabilities, but currently I believe NSA, PKI, PMO, and the Comply to Connect team are on slate to provide the NPE solution to feed into us. But once again, that's on our roadmap as a future capability. So if you have a hard NPE requirement, look at that roadmap that's posted on the hub site, that's the bottom link, and take a look at the timelines and submit your onboarding when it's appropriate or the capability is delivered. And once again, what Major had stated earlier, we are an agile program, means that we are incrementally delivering. So what we have today might not meet your needs. Tomorrow it might, or a month from now, or 6 months from now. So keep looking back with us because we are continually delivering new capability.
Testing. Okay. Quick question about applications in your IGA solution. I would imagine you guys have thousands of applications that you need to onboard into your IGA solution. I didn't see that as a priority. Is that a priority, and are there any drivers or deadlines, right, that you guys are working towards?
Yeah, so that was what I was mentioning earlier, is that all applications across the Department of Defense must find a IDP by 2025, and then the 2027 mark for the automatic account provisioning. There are quite a few applications across the Department of Defense. We have a really good handle on the financial management systems, as we discussed. The Secretary of Defense has really been pushing for the compliancing, for the auditing in regards to the financial management community. So all the ICAMs fairly understands exactly who they're onboarding, what year they're onboarding. So that schedule is really cemented. With the difficult part, I think that you're highlighting is definitely on the rest of the Department of Defense, all the non-FMs, and trying to identify who's able to onboard, what's our legacy systems, what are things that are going to be decommissioned and transition out. And that's something that we're working through. But yes, there are hundreds. But the good thing is that there are multiple ICAMs. So as we stated before, there is the Army, the Air Force, Navy, and so on and so forth. So that breaks up the work across the board, dividing it by 7 with all the Department of Defense applications. We take the fourth estate, we take, pretty much anybody and everybody else. The Army is onboarding Army, and so on and so forth. So that does help in understanding exactly what's out there. But that's the driver. The driver is the DoD CIO policy memorandum directing the Department of Defense for that Zero Trust. Mm-hmm.
And to add on top of that, the Joint Staff has also identified that there's a driving factor. They went out to all the COCOMs and directed them to choose, so that way they can start mapping whatever applications that they have to the overall roadmap. Because you're right, there are literally thousands of applications, hundreds of thousands of applications out there that have nuances and requirements. So I know the Navy's working towards their roadmap for their applications, but they are also taking on external applications. So it's really important to start taking a look at one of the ICAMs, mapping your application to them and getting your onboarding so it's at least tracked and put into a schedule, because what we can't afford is 2027, everybody comes to the table and we want to onboard. We're going to get overwhelmed. But we are working to improve our onboarding process, and we are streamlining it as we get lessons learned.
There's a question over there. Oh, back there in the orange shorts. Yeah.
Not in front of me.
I think it's cutting the lights off.
Testing.
There
Okay.
you
What are the onboarding requirements for closed restricted networks in regards to ICAMs?
I'm sorry,
So a closed network has no connection into the DoD normally.
So, good question. That was one of the challenges that we had when we started with the ICAM, is you have all these unique requirements. So the reality is, you can come to ICAM. The only challenge that you'll have is we're going to have your authorization piece, but the way we've engineered it, we have an API interface. So then you'll have to have something that's on the network, extract your provisioning information, but then you can air gap it. We are actually doing work with BoldQuest, the mission partner environment, that's exactly what they're doing. They're using our NIPR ICAM, which is a 2875, and it has a check mark for classified. They're at least provisioning the basic information, and then they're taking that user identity data and air gapping it over to the classified environment that's disconnected, so that they at least have the authorized state.
But are you talking about, when you're saying closed network, are you talking something about like a research network that is kind of closed off, or? Did he answer your question?
Yes.
Got it.
There you go. How are we doing for time?
We're at time.
So, if you want to have more discussions, I'll be available after.
Yep.
Any other questions?
Nope,
That's it? Oh, one more?
Hello? No. Around IPv6, we're seeing a challenge around some of the applications actually getting in, concurrence with that. So is that being tracked and something you're looking at? I know you said you're going to be ready, but what we've seen, there are challenges there. So.
Yeah, so that's our demarcation point. We don't go into the applications and push them towards IP version 6. We make ourselves available so that if and when they're ready, they can onboard to us. Usually that's a driving factor of the organization and sometimes funding as far as the applications go themselves. But they can decide not to be IP version 6 ready and then still onboard to us. We're just becoming ready and compliant so that if and when those applications do show up, we're ready for them. Mm-hmm. That's it.
So if there's no additional questions, thank you for your time and support and attendance.